Alright people, what we're going to talk about today is how to hang sheetrock. I'm only going to talk about hanging it. I'm not going to talk about finishing it because it's really hard to teach an art over a video, because that's basically what finishing is. It's kind of an art. There's basics to how to do it, but prefer not to get into that. Let's go over some tools. We got tools here. First off, the most important thing, in my opinion, other than a tape measure, I guess these two are equally important, is a knife with a good sharp blade. Of course, tape measure, nothing special, just something to measure with. This is a keyhole saw. You use this to cut holes for receptacles and other fixtures. You also use this to cut out the hole for doorways and windows. You typically don't cut the sheet before you hang it when you're hanging a door. You just put the full sheet up, and we're going to hang one today over a door, so I'll show you what I mean. But you use this to cut it out after the fact. This is a rasp. It is very important also. It shaves the edge of the sheet that you just cut or you're getting ready to cut. It squares it. You can square it up and clean it up. Makes for better, tighter fits. Does make a mess though. Chalk line, nothing special. Chalk line, you'll need those for your rippies, your long cuts. This is a screw gun. It's specifically for sheetrocking. This little tip right here, you can adjust it. I don't know if I can see that. You can see that screw tip goes in and out. Well, the tip doesn't, but the outside ring goes in and out, because you need to set your depth perfectly so your screws don't cut the paper, but they don't stick out and leave clickers. We'll talk about that later. This is a T-square. It's pretty much mandatory if you want to do it with any efficiency. You can do it with a level, but a must in my opinion. 48-inch long. Show you how to use that. This is a roto zip. I don't know what these things were originally made for, but if they didn't specifically have a purpose, it should have been sheetrock, because these are lifesavers. Every sheetrocker that I know has them. They have battery powered ones now. They're awesome. Before we get into it too far, I want to talk about the sheetrock itself. It's basically just paper on both sides filled with gypsum. Gypsum's brittle and by itself won't hold up for anything. It just falls apart. But the paper gives it rigidity. They work together. That said, when you cut sheetrock, you basically score it on the front side, the white side. You only score it enough. I mean, you can cut deep. The deeper you cut, the easier it is to break. But if you just get through the paper, it'll break, no problem. I'll show you what I mean later. But that's what that's for. And the rasp, see how that's rough. It's not real bad. This is actually pretty good here. This sheetrock, whatever it is, breaks really well. But you can see it's kind of got rough areas. Take the rasp and I rough it up a couple times. It makes it flat. Now a lot of times it'll be broken. The sheet will be broken and real bumpy, and that's when you really need a rasp. But this, and I didn't really need it here. The project at hand. We're going to sheetrock this wall. I'm building a pantry in the house here. I've furred in the brick walls. I already got one wall started with the rock. But this face of this wall is what we're going to do. And it makes sense to do a tutorial on this because we have a doorway we can cut. Also, the ceiling is not level in this room, and neither is the wall. The wall's not plumb. So this first sheet is going to be ugly. I'm not going to get real in depth on how I cut it, but it's going to be a little different than a normal square sheet. Let's get started. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to measure, in this case we're going to measure the long end, which I know is the top. We're going to get our measurement, 62 3/4. Let's just pretend it's square, and I'll do the hard part in the background, so you don't have to worry about that, because we're looking at basics here. I take an 1/8 inch off all measurements right away. Alright, to cut this, what we're going to do is take the knife, take a tape, and we're going to pull our measurement. And what we're going to do, do you see this? What we're going to do is we're going to stick the knife in right at our measurement, stick it into the rock and leave it. You don't need to mark this kind of stuff with a pencil. That's what your knife is for. Although you do want a pencil for complex sheets. Drop your T-square on there. It's made for a sheet, 4x8 sheet. It fits perfectly right above the floor, so you can slide it around. You slide it over, hit your knife. I'm left-handed, so you gotta just do this the opposite way that I'm doing it. Toe on the bottom of the T-square. Now, by the way, you always cut white side of the sheet out. When you stack your sheets on the wall, always do white side out. I'll show you why in a second. So you pull your knife out, put it on the T-square. You got your toe on the bottom, you got your hand on the top, your knee is in the middle, offset to the side where the blade is not going to cut because you don't want to slip. Just go slow, just enough pressure to get through the paper. Here's the beauty of sheetrock. Pull it out away from your stack, break it off. Now, stick your knife through. Here is why we cut white side out. Because when you cut the back, it can tear the back of the paper up. So if your white side is on the back side, that's what's going to happen. So you got to fix all that while you mud. Trust me, it's not fun. I want to talk about the screw gun. This is not a good screw gun. It's a crappy gun. Not the type, but the brand. The magnet doesn't work. The tip falls out all the time. You want to get a good screw gun. That said, if you don't want to get a gun, you can use a normal screw gun. I'm using an impact, but it's going to take you a long time, and you're going to mess things up a lot easier. It's doable though. I've done it before. I'll show you why you want a screw gun, but we're going to start with this because if you need to know how to do sheetrock, you probably don't have that gun. You probably have one of these. So basically, you get a screw in the gun, ready to go. It's easier if you have a couple people, but I'll show you it's not impossible if you don't. I already did a little trimming on this to account for the fact that it's not square. It's not perfect, but it's fairly close. You grab your gun. Put a screw in it. Put another screw in. Doesn't take much to hold it. Alright, so now both of these screws are not in far enough. We get what finishers call clickers. That's what it sounds like when the screw's not in far enough. And you can set them with these. You just have to be really careful. Don't over crank it. Now, can't hear it. See, you got to do a bunch of sheets. That could take forever. Now we'll go to even our crappy gun here. I mess with the tip, so I don't have my depth set right now, but put one in, we'll see what it does here. So once you get it set, then it's just basically shooting it in. Come on. That's why you gotta get a good gun. The tip comes out, it defeats the whole purpose. Now you can see, okay, so that is sunk in way too deep. So let's try another one. I adjusted the tip. just a little too shallow now. Almost perfect. That's perfect. Okay, so we've got our sheet hung. Obviously we have some more screws we can put in here along the edge, but I usually don't do that until I cut the center section out because it's easier to see the stud when you do that. So here's where spending $5–10 on a keyhole saw is fine, but I'm going to show you cutting with a keyhole saw compared to cutting with a rotozip. Now basically, you know where your stud is. You just put your knife on the edge of the stud and you saw. You saw all day long and get all the way to the top. It's not, doesn't take that long, but. Alright. So that was the saw. Let's try the rotozip now. We'll do the rotozip on this side. Compare the two so you can see what the difference is. Now I use a shop vac while I'm doing this to keep the dust down. Alright, so apparently my shop vac filter needs changed because it didn't catch any of that dust. That's alright. You can see how much faster it went. I don't know if it went faster, but it's easier in my opinion. The finished product comes out a little smoother. There's that one. There's that one. Now we got to cut the top. What I've been taught to do, what I've seen everybody else do, is score the backside, which is going against what I told you earlier, but in this case you do it. Score the backside right at the header. So I'm going to do that now. You won't be able to see it. Notice that this cut didn't go all the way. Okay, now it is. The reason we can do this is because it's easy to get to both sides of the sheet. We cut the back side, scored it, it already broke. Didn't even have to do anything. So now you lift it up, you got a nice line to cut on, right at the top. Just gotta score it. And there it goes. So I've got one more thing to show you here. There's a lot more to what I could show you on sheetrocking using the chalk line. Typically I use chalk lines for when I'm going to have to make an angle cut, say for a vaulted ceiling, when you're putting the wall piece on, it's got a diagonal top on it, right? That's what I use the chalk line for. I am going to show you how to rip a piece of sheetrock. It's a short rip, so it's not very hard, but you can do this down the whole sheet. Alright, so here we go. We have this sheet. I went over there and I measured. I need 42 inches. You come over here, take your knife at 42, you stick it in, just like we did before. This is what we're going to do. You're going to take the end of your tape measure, you're going to hold your knife just like this. You're going to pinch them together just like that so that the tip of that knife is sticking out just a little bit. So you're going to come over here. This finger right here is going to sit on top of the sheet. It's going to be your base. You're going to put the knife blade into the slit you just cut, right? And you're going to grab that tape. You're going to put a little tension on it, not much. And you're going to pinch it down with your thumb, with that thumb. Pinch it. Now, you're going to lightly cut. We're doing a test cut and you want to go right through that mark. So this is going to take some practice. I've done this 100 times, 1,000 times, and I still screw it up. So hold your knife tight to the tip of the tape. Just enough to cut the paper. Run it across. Hopefully it doesn't move. Okay, now you've scored it. Now it's just that simple. Breaks right off. We want the finished edge up to match the finished edge here. Our cut edge is going to go down. I'm going to put it in place. Now another tool that is helpful, not required. They actually have a tool that does this, what I'm getting ready to do, but I don't own one because I really don't need one. You can use one of these. This is a Wonder Bar. A lot of people have them. It's just a flat crowbar. Just stick it up underneath the sheet. Now, I don't know if you can see it on the video here. It looks like you can. There's a gap here because the sheet's shorter. We did that on purpose. You got to get it up in the air. You got to hike it. Now there's a stud right here. On intermediate studs, you put 5 screws per line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the outsides, on the edges, you put 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So essentially, that's it. That's how you hang rock. There are a ton of other more complicated aspects of it, but in general, hanging simple walls, this is how you would do it. So be sure to go on my channel, check out all my other videos. I do episodes. I don't necessarily have a set schedule. I do them as often as I can. Sometimes it's every day, sometimes it's every other day, sometimes it's every third day. But I do episodes. I'm working on my house here, riding my bike. Check those out. I also have a how to cut circles in tile, which may or may not help you. More to come. Subscribe, check it out, and we'll do some stuff together.